What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Love Coach Scott Katamas, and welcome to the Awakening World. I want to send a big welcome to all of our friends that are already into our Zoom room. We've got about 40 people joining us so far. And please let us know where you are geographically. That always feels really, really good. And I see that already we've got people from Chicago, San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, California, Santa Barbara, Oregon Coast, Toronto, and so let us know. I also want to welcome everybody who's watching on the different Facebook groups and pages and on the YouTube channels. A big thank you to Alan Steinfeld and New Realities for his YouTube channel that always carries us. A big thank you also to John and Summer Raymer, who run the Sign Network. That gets us out to as many as 100 different groups and pages on Facebook. And of course, we always enjoy our international friends from all over the world, many of whom we meet through Unify. Now, it's great if you want to watch on Facebook or YouTube, but I'd like to invite you to come directly into our Zoom room. And that way, it's easier to interact with us. And we're going to actually have some really dynamic dialogue tonight. We've got great guests, so really, really interesting people and very wise. So you're going to have questions, they're going to have answers about what it really means, this our moment of choice. So come on into our Zoom room, and it's easy and it's free. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com, globalpeacetribe.com, and register. And you can register for free with a promo code of new friend. And what'll happen is you'll get an email with all the links to all of our shows for the next 2 months. We do a show on Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday morning, taking a theme and really exploring that theme thoroughly. And this weekend, our theme is our moment of choice. Now, it was inspired by a wonderful book, and I'm bringing on my wonderful co-host for the whole weekend. I get to co-host with Reverend Deborah Moldow, but we like to call her Rev Deb, because she revs us all up in her Deb way. And she is here to co-host and introduce all these amazing people that are her friends and colleagues that she's brought on board. And we're also celebrating the paperback release of this really wonderful book called Our Moment of Choice. Now, we're going to see a little video about it in a few minutes, but Reverend Deb, right off the bat, what would you like to share with our audience for starters?
First of all, I just want to welcome everyone who's part of the Global Peace Tribe. This phrase means so much to me personally. Before getting involved with the Evolutionary Leaders and this amazing book, I worked for 20 years representing May Peace Prevail on Earth at the United Nations. And just the idea that there is a global peace tribe out there. And that, Scott, you bring us together every weekend, 3 times every weekend, to celebrate what's new, to celebrate fresh ideas, to bring amazing musical performers and visionaries together to explore this new paradigm that we're all co-creating. So thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm particularly delighted this weekend. This is the week that our publisher Beyond Words, which is an imprint of Atria Books, Simon and Schuster, chose to release the paperback edition of Our Moment of Choice. Now, Our Moment of Choice came out in 2020. And we actually had this title for a long time. This title came from our beloved evolutionary leader, Gregg Braden. He had wanted to use it for a book and his publisher didn't like it. And he gave it to us when we had the idea to do a book together with the evolutionary leaders back in maybe 2008, 2009. And that book didn't happen. And then 10 years later or more, another evolutionary leader, Bob Atkinson, came to us and said, I'd really like to put together an anthology book by the evolutionary leaders. And he took on a lot of the responsibility for the book, really made it happen. And we brought in a third co-editor, Dr. Kurt Johnson, who has appeared on this program, I think, numerous times.
Yeah.
And we said, well, you know what? We have a title. How about we use the title, Our Moment of Choice, that Gregg had gifted us with? And everybody said, well, that's a good title. Well, we had no idea. By the time the book came out, we were in mid-pandemic. And everybody was becoming aware that we needed to make new choices if we wanted to survive and thrive on this beautiful planet. And now here we are. History has moved forward, and now there's a war in Europe, which we didn't even think was possible to ever happen again. And more than ever, it feels like our moment of choice. So this is the idea that we want to share with people, even more than the book itself, that this is a time, a critical time for all humanity, and everyone is welcome to be part of this moment, bringing forth the new, being willing to let go of what isn't working anymore so that we can create a whole new way of living on this earth, with this earth, and as part of this earth. So this is our moment of choice.
Beautiful. And I want to welcome, we've got people from New England, New Jersey, Australia, Ecuador. So it's really fun that we've got people from all over our world. And we've got 2 amazing guests that you're going to meet in a moment. But let's take a look at this wonderful short little video that introduces you to our moment of choice. And then we're going to meet 2 of the authors of this wonderful anthology book. Let's take a look.
This is our moment of choice.
We are living a time when the unsustainable ways of thinking and living from the past can no longer continue.
Conflicts, injustices, inequalities, and exploitation are all symptoms of a deeper dis-ease.
Things are moving at a very rapid pace. We're in a planetary shift, a shift of priorities that are breaking up the old paradigm throughout the world.
As we search for new solutions and healthy ways to move forward from our time of extremes, the question is, what's possible for us in our lives?
We are moving into a great new dawning, a great new day for humanity. This is our moment.
How can you tell the future? By making the future.
This is the time in which we really can begin to regenerate and renew our world.
Crisis precipitates evolution, and the global crises that we're experiencing right now are informing us of the need for an evolutionary upheaval.
Spirituality is a natural form of the universe, and we are spiritual beings in the spiritual universe and have tremendous power to come into wholeness.
Have you noticed that every time you make a good choice, it makes a difference?
Every one of us has input.
This is the time to realize the fantastic power of consciousness to reach out.
We now have system sciences, we have the quantum sciences.
We have healing hidden powers within us.
We have all of the new evidence coming forth that we are an interconnected, highly directed whole.
The earth does not belong to man, man belongs to the earth. We're no more than a thread in this weaving of life and in all creation.
Everything in nature, everything in reality has a purpose. Purpose is a key aspect of birthing genius.
We are in such a great and magnificent period of transformation, evolution, growth, and yet we have a choice.
This is our moment of choice. That's what it's all about.
What a beautiful video, and every one of those people has been on either Saturday Night Live or The Awakening World. I mean, it's really this incredible, it's like a faculty of the university that we're all going to.
Somebody said to me, this anthology, it looks like my bookshelf.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we have two of the authors with us tonight, and then several of the other authors are going to be on Saturday night and Sunday morning. But I'm going to bring on our two authors that are with us tonight, and I'd like you to introduce them since you know them personally.
Oh, it is my honor to know these two extraordinary women. Truly, I don't know which one to start with. So let's see. I'm going to start with Shilpa Jane. Shilpa has been, since I know her, running Yes World. So she's been working with young people and others, training them all over the world to be, well, essentially to be evolutionary leaders. Everybody, I just want to explain for anyone who is new to this term what an evolutionary leader is. So I'm going to digress for just a moment, because all 43 contributors to this book are members of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, as is Scott. And, so the Evolutionary Leaders is a community of people who whose work is at the leading edge of the evolution. So some of them are quite well known. Even people on the street have heard of Deepak Chopra. And quite a number of the people you heard speak in the video are well-known authors. Not everybody in the book is that well-known, but they're doing the work. And this is what I find so extraordinary about Shilpa Jane and Leyden. And Lori, whose organization is called Create Global Healing, she's been healing trauma around the world, in Rwanda and here at home. After school shootings, she went to Parkland to work with the students there. She's an amazing human being. Both of these women are the kind of people who are making a difference in so many lives in what they do. that we were really thrilled to include their beautiful chapters in the book, Our Moment of Choice. So I can't wait to hear them share today, now that the book has been out for a while and we're celebrating the paperback launch. I really want to hear from both of them how they feel about this moment right now, where they are in their own lives, where they are in their work, empowering others to make change in the world.
Lori, would you be willing to speak first?
I would be willing to speak first. Thank you. And thank you, Deborah and Scott, for this really beautiful, beautiful opportunity for us to commune with so many people at a time that is so incredible, where it's a time, I believe, where we need to choose the nightmare or the dream. And while both are existing on the planet right now, if we can find peace in our hearts, I really do believe we can find peace in the world, and it starts with us. And I do believe that our greatest humanitarian work in the world is healing our own traumas first. That's how I came to this work. It was all about healing my own childhood traumas and led me into research and exploration of what are the most elegant ways that we can heal. And we have new technologies of healing now that have not been widely distributed. And that's a topic we could get into later, but just to explain a little bit about where I'm coming from. As I say, in an effort to heal my own traumas, I researched every healing avenue known to, as I like to say, man, woman, and extraterrestrial. But having said that, then it led me into that deep, deep work into my own darkness. What I thought I was going to find was how flawed and how not good enough I was, and how alone and disconnected from the divine I was. And in that journey, I found out exactly the opposite, that we are all divine, that when we have the courage and the right resonance to journey into our pain, we find the gifts and miracles of that. And I believe that we have two purposes in this life. One is to heal the wound of separation from the divine, and during that journey to find our unique destiny, our unique divine destiny. And I believe that healing our traumas reveals to us the seeds of our passion and our destiny. So this has been my work for many numbers of years. And I would say, honestly, when I think about this being our moment of choice, I think that there are moments of choice every day, every day, every day. For me, it was 10 years old and reading the diary of Anne Frank. And I said, there should never be a genocide again. And then I find myself working in Rwanda with genocide survivors. Now, that's another workshop. However, the things that touched me and touched my heart and spurred my passion to heal myself also led me to this work I'm doing in the world, which Deborah has mentioned. And so we've done this work in Rwanda for the last 17 or 18 years with orphan genocide survivors. I'm working in Australia with Aboriginal and refugee communities. People may not know that Aboriginal teenagers have the highest suicide rate in the world. It's a 35,000-year-old culture that is truly, truly in jeopardy of becoming extinct right now because of cultural and economic, what I consider to be genocide. And then I spent 3 years in Newtown with the Sandy Hook elementary school survivors and 2 years in Parkland with the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas survivors. So what I've learned from this is that there are gifts and miracles out of tragedy. I've learned that there is resilience to the human spirit, and that when I say technologies, I'm talking about somatic release therapies that are able to release trauma, which is a brain dysfunction that many people do not know. So I'm going to bookmark this here because I don't want to go too far into our whole evening, but I just want to say that I believe we have the technology to create global healing. We just have to get these healing technologies into the hands of as many people as possible. And I believe we need to focus on the traumatized youth in our world. We have 52% of the world's population is under the age of 30. When we think about the Ukraine and the Russian conflict right now, how many people? 4.5 million refugees already. This, if everything that's happened before was not our moment of choice, certainly we must make this our moment of choice. And I'll bookmark that there.
Lori, we just met tonight, so I'm still just getting to know you. But I, right off the bat, want to invite you. It turns out next week on The Awakening World, usually I don't do a promotion this early in the show, but you want to bookmark your healing aspect, and next weekend, the whole show is dedicated to healing. And so I would love to talk to you about coming on to the show next week, because I want to learn more about what you were just saying. So, wow. But we're going to get more Lori Leyden later tonight as well. So Deborah, I'm going to bring you back on. And of course, let's hear from, where'd she go? Your other gal disappeared.
Shilpa.
I'm right here. I'm still here.
You know what's funny? I'm looking, did you turn your camera off?
Nope.
There you are.
I'm
Okay.
here.
Usually the people who
There she
are like right up nearby, and you got in way over with all of our other friends. So anyway, Shilpa, I love that you work with young people. And we just discovered prior to you coming on that you work with Creating Our Future and Yes World, which I've been loosely associated with for a very long time, going back to 1988. So how wonderful, and I'd love for you to kind of share, of course, whatever your response is to our moment of choice. What does that mean to you today?
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Lori, for that beautiful opening. I can kind of just pick up from where you left off, I feel like, in so many ways, and focus again on where we are with healing and the possibility of transforming our separated and disconnected and disassociated world in so many ways towards a more interdependent, loving, and interconnected world. And so Yes's work and my work in that really focuses on the skills, the tools, the practices that we need to build that world together, as well as the kind of community and support that's absolutely essential. I've done a lot of work over the years and looking at there's a huge role for personal transformation and growth, and this is incredibly important. And it's also really important to look at our wider world, the systems, the economic, political, social, educational systems that we have. But there's a missing layer in there, and that to me is a layer of community. And so the layer of community is what weaves it together. It's what lets me know as a human being that I'm not alone floating, trying to manifest all this healing and transformation, or that these systems are just too big and they're unreachable. But what makes that shift is really focusing on that layer of community. And that's what Yes's work focuses on, by bringing together change makers who are usually in the ages of 20s, 30s, 40s, in now more increasingly in our intergenerational world, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, to come together and really drop in more deeply into what it is to manifest and realize the kind of interconnection and beloved community that our hearts are longing for. And so Yes gathers change makers in week-long or multi-day gatherings called jams. And the jam comes from the spirit of the musician's jam, the idea that everyone is a co-creator, everyone has a unique voice, their story, their struggles, their vantage point, their fears, their hopes, their dreams, all of that coming together. And in the jam spirit, to really listen deeply to each other, because the fundamental premise is that actually we have every solution we need already. Everything is there. It's within us, it's between us, it's among us, it's within the earth that we live in, this magnificent earth. It's within spirit and our ancestors. We have everything. It's just maybe we've forgotten how to listen, how to slow down enough to really hear it, hear each other, hear ourselves. And so the jams really, it's about that. It's about slowing down enough to listen, to tune in, to inquire into our body wisdom, our heart wisdom, our soul wisdom, and to make space for each other and make space for ourselves, for all that is true to come forward. And that is the jamming and learning from each other. And so riffing off of each other and co-creating and collaborating. And I really go with the spirit of collaborating to co-liberate, that when we come together, we actually free ourselves of a lot of the stuck places, the stories that have locked us in, the lack of possibility or imagination that has really blocked us in this time. And what we need more of, more than anything, I think, is that freedom to imagine, to be creative, and to really bring our whole selves forward in beloved community. And so the jams really focus on that. They create a space and an opportunity for people to come together, especially across age, across race, across class, across gender expressions and sexualities and nationalities and religions. Because one of the things we're seeing is that we lose so much energy in our division. We lose so much energy and so much possibility. It just tears us apart, whether it's the war in Ukraine or the police brutality in the United States or violence against immigrants and refugee population. It doesn't matter where it is happening. It's happening everywhere. And every time we do, we're losing the beautiful human gift of genius, of capacity, possibility, and imagination. And so in learning how to be together and be together in ways that honor each other and make space for something even more magical than we could have imagined, something that brings all of our parts together, that's the jam, that's the space. And when people get a chance to practice in that kind of space together as change makers, they learn both tools and ways of being that they can carry them forward, but they also have the support system. They develop the support system that's absolutely essential to persevere in these really trying times, really challenging times. So I can say more about that, but that's what we're really on the growing edge of evolution is the community that we're trying to build, and all the practices for conflict transformation, healing, and co-learning that really shape that community.
I love the work you're doing. And so I'm actually going to go to you. Usually I don't do this till later, but since you just talked about the jams, to learn about them, go to yesworld.org, yesworld.org, and then you click where it says Explore Upcoming Jams. And so here they are. And so you can see some of the different topics: arts for social change, men raised as men jam. That looks interesting. Restorative justice jam. Such an incredibly important new direction. We so have to leave the punishment model and go to the restorative justice model. So beautiful. Look at these wonderful things that you've got going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we have 3 kinds of jams. So there's lots of entry points for people. You might be wanting to enter from the geography that you live in. So we have country-based programs and city and even regional programs like the Northeast or Jam for Northeast-based folks, or Northwest changemakers, or we have one in Toronto. I saw a lot of Canada folks, and one in Nova Scotia. And we also have ones that are more focused on different kinds of identities, like men raised as men, or the Black diaspora jam, or the LGBTQ queer jam, the Asian diaspora jam. And then we have ones that are focused on different kinds of entry points based on our work in the world. So as you named, restoring justice, focused on restorative justice practitioners, returning citizens, folks who are really fundamentally wanting to change our criminal system that is so punitive and really, again, contributes to this massive division and loss of human genius into something that can actually be restorative and generative and actually bring the healing that we want to see about, and education transformation, and law for social change, and arts for social change. So there's many entry points based on who you are, what's alive in you, and your questions, and the real faith that our questions will guide our way forward. When we are engaged in honest, active inquiry, we can find really amazing ways forward together.
Well, speaking of questions, we're now beginning to receive questions and comments from people. So please give us your thoughts, comments, questions. From Nikki Stone, who's watching on Unify, she says, for me, the moment of choice is separating from mainstream society and learning a new way of life. Mm-hmm. But the hardest choice I'm having is really committing to letting go of the past. so that I can create a new dream for the future. I'm finding the uncertainty very difficult. It's hard to stay grounded. When we have trauma, it's hard to not stay in the same patterns. It feels like I keep getting pulled back again and again and again to old patterns. So I'd like to make the choice to have better boundaries starting tonight. So first of all, thank you, Nikki, for that beautiful, very vulnerable, and I think how many can relate to that? Yeah. So I'm going to open it up to the three of you. Do you have any tools that you want to share of how to acknowledge our past, acknowledge our trauma, and to move past it, to be able to dream a new dream? And I see Shilpa raising her head, nodding her head. So I think I got to go to you first, if that's okay.
Sure. Thank you, Scott. And thank you for that really beautiful share from the heart. I think what I want to offer is that, one, you're not alone, that this edge that we're walking on, a friend of yesterday named it as between peril and possibility, is really real. And a tool I just want to offer, and I'll just share this. This was a beautiful drawing that was created. Hopefully you all can see this, a beautiful drawing that was created by a jammer in Turkey, Ayşe Gökçebor, who put this together as a way to help us understand where are we in any given moment. And so to recognize that, we have our comfort zone where we're comfortable, things are familiar. It's a great resting place, but it's not always the great place for our learning or growth. We can't learn or grow there because we know everything there. And so then we have to step out, which into our stretch zone, which by definition is uncomfortable, but we could be like this giraffe, stretch our neck out a little, and always recognizing like what's enough stretch for me today, and really honoring that. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. It can really be as to the degrees and the capacities that we have any given day. We can stretch in our sharing, stretch in our expression, stretch in our exploration, stretch in our listening. And then there's our panic zone. That's just when we've gone too far. We're not able to be present anymore. We're not able to listen. And that space in between that stretch and panic is what I'm hearing in your inquiry, Nikki, that this is the space. Are you able to stretch? Are you going into panic? And so just want to offer that panic zone is also a really normal place. It's very understandable. And if we can take some breaths, if we can slow down, if you can just give yourself space and time to sort of check in and say, like, what is there for me right now? What do I want to grow? And how can I access support and community to support me in my journey? I'm hopeful that will help in that navigation and help you find your way forward into that learning space. The stretch zone space is a learning and connective space. It's the growth space. And, it's important to just check in and slow down and notice how much stretch am I doing in every day, and notice that there's always options for support.
I love that they chose the giraffe. I had the honor to travel, study, and teach with Marshall Rosenberg before he passed away, the founder of Compassionate Communication. And the giraffe is our kind of our model of how we want to be for many, many reasons. I won't go into all the reasons, but one of them is that giraffes have the largest heart of any land mammal. So thank you for that. Lori?
I'm really happy to hear that model and to be reminded of that model, which Shilpa has taught me before, and I have to admit I had forgotten, because often when I'm in that giraffe stretch zone, I can confuse it for the panic zone. Whereas what's happening is simply that I'm not in comfort in my little hammock. I am trying to make something happen or to reach a deeper understanding, and to really get that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm in some kind of panic, that this is really a good, healthy place to be, is very important. So I thank you, Shilpa, for reminding me of this lesson. And I know that Lori Leyden has a lot to say about techniques for bringing us out of the panic zone and back to where we need to be in the moment.
Yeah, Lori, if you could respond to that. And then also there had been a question somebody wanted to know why the Aborigines are committing suicide. So, well, the spotlight's on you. If you could address that also, please.
Yes. Well, first, and Shilpa brings home a huge point, which is that sense that we're alone. And no matter, we can be surrounded by our loved ones, we can have so much community, but internally we can still feel alone. And all of these healing techniques have to address that and be in community with that. So I think my big issue is educating people on what happens in the body when we're stressed or traumatized. This is not something that is in the public domain. We're just beginning to address it. People are talking about the vagus nerve and various things. But for 40 years, I've been working with the how to re-regulate the physiological dysfunction that occurs when we are stressed or traumatized. So when we're stressed or traumatized, we're sending signals to the reptilian brain that we're in survival mode. And there's something called the smoke detector in the brain, which is the amygdala, which communicates with the memory center, which is the hippocampus. When we're stressed or traumatized, the signals between the memory center and the stress center get very confused and frozen. And it's the amygdala that sends signals to the body, whether to flow endorphins or steroids, cortisol, adrenaline, which are the stress hormones. We must be able to regulate that physiology in order to manage our connection, our mind, body, heart connection. So I'm going to take some time with this because I think this education is critical to how people are going to seek help and what techniques they're going to use. So what we know is from, I'm sure people on the call know about heart math and all of the beautiful research coming out of heart math. And so what we know from heart math is that the heart has its own brain. The same neuronal cells in the heart are the same neuronal cells in the brain, the prefrontal cortex, right? So what we also know is the heart is the first organ to form in the fetus, in the human fetus. Now, this begs the question, what organ is developing the rest of the body? And we believe it's the heart. The heart has, when we're in feelings of gratitude, love, joy, and wonder, the heart is communicating with the prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of our highest human gifts and what I consider to be our spiritual gifts as well. I believe that the heart and the brain heartwire us for our divinity, because when we're in those higher states, we have access to our inner wisdom, to our sense of transcendency, our sense of creative problem solving, our sense of connectedness, and our sense of spirituality. And so, and when we're in those negative lower states of stress and anxiety and tension, we're only communicating with the reptilian brain. So we're in that survival mode all the time. Until we understand that the therapeutic techniques that are most gentle and most efficient come from releasing the what's happening in the body and allowing us to come to that physiological regulation, trauma healing can be very painful when it doesn't have to be. And there are many, many things I can say about this, but it's really important that people look at somatic release techniques for stress and trauma first. Unfortunately, talk therapy only serves to further hijack people's physiology if there is no somatic release technique. Now, again, lots of verbiage there for people. but I would encourage people to, what I consider to be somatic release techniques are emotional freedom techniques, which is what I use in these traumatic communities, traumatized communities. I've developed the clinical approach, not the self-care approach, to EFT for trauma. Things like EMDR, new thing, biofeedback and havening, and there are a host of new therapies coming forward. But people must look at that physiological regulation first. I realize I'm making a big emphasis here, and it's a kind of a perhaps a new topic, but it's essential when we are wanting to heal ourselves that we learn to regulate our physiology. We have the technology to do that. I've done that in these communities. People are able to heal the worst of human trauma in a, I won't say easy, but certainly perhaps in a more elegant fashion. And when they become resilient, they can teach these techniques to others. And this is how we can begin to understand how important it is to feel peace in our hearts first. And that starts with our physiology. And what heart math has also taught us, that the resonance field of the heart, when we're in higher levels of gratitude, love, joy, and wonder, is 5,000 times greater than our brain, the resonance field of our brain. And so when people are in that high optimal level of heart, brain, body connection, other people can step into that resonance field and their hearts will regulate to that. I'm going to pause here because I don't want to overwhelm people, but is that making sense, Scott?
It is, yeah. It's so important for people to find someone like yourself to work with, to really learn how to apply these tools of managing our system. You know, a big part of what I teach is how to go from reptile brain reaction to frontal lobe responsiveness. And the good news is this is the movement of the human species. As you probably know, biologists have discovered that each generation further removed from trauma, the synapses fire more frequently up here. Those who have had trauma in their lives or are closely related to people who have had trauma, the synapses still fire more back here. And there's no right or wrong. It's more comfortable up here. And it is the movement as we move from survival and being in a survival species to thriving. And we all have to hold each other along. For those of us that are blessed to be more up here, to have maximum compassion for those that live in a state of low-grade anxiety, that live in a state of hypervigilance, and to have maximum compassion for people like that, and to do what we can to make it safe.
Well, and as the show goes on, maybe there'll be time for some stories, but I can tell you stories about my work with 100 orphan head of households in Rwanda. These are children who were 6 to 8 years old at the time of the genocide and were given 2 to 6 other children to raise with no visible means of support, no money, no place to live. And 13 years after the genocide, I was able to be with them and work with them. And we did these techniques with them. And here's what I know. I partner with the people that I work with. I am only the expert in these skills. The individual is the expert in their own experience. And so when I first went to do this work, and I thought, again, I don't want to usurp the conversation, but we did several different techniques in which, after a space of 1 hour, these 100 young people from the age of 18 to 24 experienced safety in their bodies. And I thought we were working on an issue, which we were, But the real result was that they felt safe in their bodies for the first time. And I realized at that point that that was the key to everything.
Yes. Yes.
Lori,
well,
you are so my Shiro. I just bow to you for all of this good work that you have done in different parts of the world, and especially with young people. And I have a question for you, because what keeps coming back to my heart is the situation in Ukraine and the extreme trauma that is impacting everyone who lives there, and particularly those who are really in the path of the bullets and the bombs. And so I want to ask you about how to take this to scale.
Mm-hmm.
So both in terms of the people who are actually in harm's way, who are experiencing trauma in their everyday lives from day to day to day to day. I mean, it's just unimaginable to me. Mm-hmm. But also to the rest of us who are carrying this with them, for them, whose hearts go out to them. And so I want you to answer that. And one other thing, which is, you talk about the heart energy, the joy energy of the heart. And what I notice is in the news and among our leaders, and, you know, if you're going to read the newspaper before you go to bed, that's not the message you're going to get, is not the joy in your heart, right? And how do we as a culture have more joy so that we can all breathe through our traumas and release them? And so that's part two of the question.
Yes, and how much time do we have, darling?
Please solve the world's problems this evening, Lori.
Well, let me say a couple of things. What you say about scaling and replicating is essential, because I have gone into these communities in these countries working with young people and quickly realized I can't do the one-offs, you know, it's just not, there's too many people. And so my focus has been on training educators and parents and licensed mental health professionals and anyone who is involved with supporting youth to do their own work first. And that is a combination of the GRACE process and EFT, emotional freedom techniques. And so I created the concept of Project Light, which stands for Heart-Centered Leadership Inspires Global Healing and Transformation. So that was our scalable model, which we took to Rwanda. We took 12 young people who graduated from the poorest orphanage in Rwanda, most traumatized, and we put them through a month-long training where we taught them EFT. We helped them heal their traumas. We taught them economic sustainability skills, and we taught them how to be heart-centered leaders. So the model is, if we can support our traumatized young people to heal, to work, and lead us into a peaceful future, this is how we are going to change and change the planet and create global healing. Then my vision was, with endless amounts of money, that there would be Project Light centers all over the world where young people would talk to other young people and come up with the solutions for changing our world. Because, as Scott mentioned, that intergenerational trauma pattern would have been interrupted. And so the work really is with individuals, with therapists, with coaches, with spiritual people, with, you know, in our churches, with licensed people, with anyone who has contact with young people. Can you imagine if we had peace in our hearts and we had done the work ourselves, how we would nurture this next generation of young people? So we did it in Rwanda. We have, you know, a documentary that talks about that. And then, interestingly enough, I go to Newtown, Sandy Hook, where we lost 20 6-year-olds and 9 adults that day. And I began to connect the young people in Newtown with my people in Rwanda. And who else could understand these kids in Newtown, 12 years old? They're like, we don't want to talk to the adults. They don't know what we're experiencing, you know. And when I said, hey, do you want to talk to when I say kids, they were in their 20s. This is what the documentary talks about, is the connection and what happened with the connection. And this is where Project Light got off the ground. I still have the vision that we can do that worldwide, but scaling and replicating a movement to heal ourselves from the inside out is the answer. And when you speak about joy, many people come to me, and you know, when I go into these situations, it's like, it's about finding joy. It's about honoring and being fully present to the darkness and the depth of the burdens and the horrors and the traumas, but it's connecting so deeply on a heart level that we can find joy, we can find humor, that we can be lighthearted even in the worst of circumstances. And that's the medicine. That's the medicine. And it works every time. And it also works to support resilience. And I don't want to go on too long here, but there was a third question about the Aboriginal youth. That is a very political question. Aboriginal people in Australia are on the verge of extinction. If the government does not support, as our own American government does not support our Indigenous people, this is a plight of trauma around the world that we ignore. Indigenous people, we ignore their plight, we ignore their traumas, and in fact, we foist trauma upon them. And so it's really important that we understand that everyone needs to be included in this global healing. Nobody can be exempt from healing this trauma, especially with the Indigenous people who have the wisdom that we need so badly, but we are marginalizing them. And I don't want to get too far afield into the politics, but I have much to say about this.
Well, you did a beautiful job answering all of those questions. And in the process, I think you also queued up Shilpa Jane to come in with her training of young people and how it relates to what you've been speaking about.
Thank you. Thank you for all of that, Lori. There's just so many dimensions of just like love and truth and care in what you're sharing. And I'm just really so appreciative of all you're doing and all you are. And when you were talking about Project Light centers all over the world, I'm like, yeah, I feel that. I feel that energy of growth. And I'm seeing a lot of that actually in my own work as well. There's a liberation to these methodologies. And I think in that way, they're very radical because they don't cost anything. They're not commodifiable. We can't put them in a market and market them in that way. But what we can do is share them. And that returns to these very ancient and wise practices of our humanity, honestly, this gift culture, this return and the reciprocity that is so absolutely necessary right now. And so that's what I see in the work that I'm doing. And I'm hearing that in what you're doing is that as I begin, there's an old adage, right? Hurt people hurt people. And what I've heard before after that, or what, kind of generated is hurt people, and they create systems that hurt people. And healing people are healing people and creating systems that are healing people. And so as each of us are working on this healing and coming together in community, and I'm hearing all the community in Lori's examples as well, the importance of being together in our healing journeys and including everyone. Everyone has a healing journey. Everyone has their wounds from childhood, adolescence, adulthood. We are wounded beings all the time. And when we come together and listen to each other and make space for that and find that actually we share so much common ground, there are so many points of interconnection, that itself is so freeing and liberating just to be listened to. And then the joy that comes on the other side, that not only have I shared something that was challenging, I was listened to. And not only after that, but people love me more. They love me more than what I ever thought was possible, holding this pain, the shame, this wounding, whatever it might be. And that liberates the joy, that liberates the gratitude, the creativity, the love. And from there, what we're able to grow is remarkable. It's infinite, you know? And so that's what I see in these very simple processes, that whether we're doing them in jams or Project Light or all these different entities around the world, that the spirit is, we have these tools. These are our birthright as human beings. They are in us. We can share them. We can learn them. We can practice them together. We can make mistakes. We can fall on our faces and get up again and try again, because what we hold at the heart of it is that this is all possible. This is all doable. And this is the moment of choice, right? The moment of choice between that panic and stretch, the moment of choice between the breakdown or breakthrough. And my hope and my prayer is that we are trying to lean towards that choice of love, that choice of breakthrough, that choice of transforming the systems that we are in today. Because without that transformation, we all know it's not going to work without those transformations coming our way. So how do we do that? And the way we do that in this work that I do with young people and change makers of all ages is that we're able to like listen and believe that there is a genius and a gift in each one of us, and share that with each other with generosity and reciprocity, and be able to bring those pieces together in play, in creation, in transformation. And sometimes that looks like moving through grief. Sometimes that looks like moving through anger. Sometimes that looks like moving through all the things that separate us, but in an opportunity that when we be with it together, something else breaks through, that breakthrough of love and recognition. And so that acknowledgement, that appreciation, that recognition, that's what we're doing. And I feel so blessed that, you know, everything that I do, I feel like it's a learning field. And like when there's this yes, and I'm ready to learn, I'm ready to contribute, I'm ready to be a part of it, all of that just keeps growing and multiplying and multiplying. That to me is also part of the evolution, right? We're learning, listening to people in all different parts of our world today, you know, people who have been marginalized, people who have been shut down. And yet, as Lori just shared, they often have the deepest seeds of the wisdom that we need right now, because they know what it is to make it in this world, to make it to bring light, to bring energy, to bring hope in this world. And so we can listen and learn and learn and learn and unlearn some things that we need to be unlearning, and uplearn towards what we really want to be growing in this world. And so I'll just add that I see that all the time in my work with Yes and with so many like-minded and like-hearted organizations around the world.
Shilpa, I know that Scott is looking at the internet and finding all the questions from everybody else, but I have a question I just have to take this opportunity to ask you. You talk about being with these young people and the wisdom that comes through them. And I have very little opportunity to be with young people and listen to them. And you spoke earlier about the stories that we're caught in, old stories. And I want to hear from you what you're hearing from them about the new stories that are emerging through our young people.
Well, I mean, I'll say young, but, you know, there's so many more youngers. And, you know, I love that statement that our youngers are our elders in universe time. They're really the ones who are bringing in that wisdom. And I think, you know, what I'm really hearing, there's a few things. One is this deep, deep sense that we are wiser together and we need each other. And this is such a fundamental transformation from the stories even I heard as a young person, which was like, you got to make it alone. The lone wolf, the hero, that's the one who's got, and so this really big shift and big understanding that no, we are wiser together. We need each other. We are as strong as when we come together. That's how strong we are. That's really our truth. And so I think that's been incredibly beautiful. I'm also hearing a really strong change from the sense that I'm here to work and just be a working machine, to like, no, life is actually it is about creating beauty. It is about wonder. It is about play. It is about, joy. And so how do we shift our whole life, these tropes that we've been caught in of like the capitalist economy that just says you just got to work to live and live to work. And that's and like, nope, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to bring beauty. I'm here to bring change. I'm here to bring love in the world. And there's so much more that I can do with that, from a place of joy. So exactly, I think some of the things that, Lori was also saying, like when I'm tapping in, and when these young folks and these change makers are all tapping into our heart space, what we're emanating is that joy, that love, that wonder. And that's what then has that ripple effect. And so those are a couple things. There's so many more things, and there's someone just wrote the word truth. And I think that's also a third thing I'll share is that what I really hear from people is there's a desire to not compromise on the truth anymore. And not saying truth is a capital T and there's only one truth, but like that each of us has a truth, and that truth deserves to be heard. That truth has a place in this time. And those can be very uncomfortable truths. And very, like, oh, but those are real. And that truth, that reality of a person's spirit, the reality of their circumstances, the reality of their pain, the reality of their love, all of that deserves to be fully heard. And that truth, that willingness to say the uncomfortable things and make them heard, I think is another really strong aspect that young change makers are bringing in this time. And we need all of that. The truth, the love, the community. Yeah, all of it.
Yes, somebody just put in the chat, being heard is healing.
Absolutely.
Well, somebody also asked, what was a choice that you made that changed your life? I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's where I was going to go next. So,
okay.
Yeah, Dorina, who's coming to us from Ecuador, and Dorina always gives good question. And so, as was just foreshadowed by Lori, so yeah, question for all three of you. I'm not going to let Rev Deb off the hook on this one. What was a choice you made that changed your life and transformed you personally the most? And then Dorina writes, for herself, it's when she realized that she can learn as much, if not more, from joy as from pain. So thank you, Dorina, for the question. Thank you for sharing that. And Lori, do you want to tackle that first?
Sure. I would say that the biggest choice I made came, and please do not practice this at home. It came from a near-death experience in which I learned finally to choose to safely receive. And I realized at a very, in middle age, that I had not really ever received because receiving had been traumatic for me in the past. And that's a different story. But being visible was, created trauma. But in this point, as an adult going through my healing, I realized that I would never understand the power of my giving until I understood what receiving really was. And I had been a giver, as many, many people are, and many people who want to serve humanity. But giving can put us into the martyr trap, which is another workshop, Scott. But when I learned to safely receive, and it was really receiving from the divine, it was an internal process of knowing that I was loved and I was safe. And then I was in a physical state from a medical situation where I needed to ask people to bring me food and help me. And that was so hard for me. Hard. If I could have driven myself to the hospital myself, I would have. That's how stuck I was. I'll take care of it myself. I'll do it myself. I've always depended on myself. And this is why I say to people, please don't go to the extreme that I have gone to, because I now know that I can safely receive because I love myself, I have boundaries, and I have discernment. And again, and if I don't allow my loved ones to give to me, I am invalidating them. I am saying that they don't count. I'm saying that what they're trying to love and give me doesn't matter. And so I'm going to bookmark that there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lori. Shilpa.
Thank you, Lori. Yeah. So one of the biggest choices I made was when I was 21, 22, to retire. Because I was all prepared to do this, to step on the treadmill and get into the whole system and do the thing that way. And I had the good fortune of getting to learn from other people in my life that didn't really lead to a life of joy and meaningfulness. And so I kind of stepped off of the treadmill and went and moved to India and worked with my brother and sister-in-law and a beautiful group of human beings on a radical movement on rethinking education and development called Sumter. And what it did for me was, it was the first time in my life that I stopped listening to external forces to decide for me what the path of my life was supposed to be. And I was willing to tune in, to risk, to be the lone person in a way, not really alone. Actually, it was a huge turn towards community and towards ancestral wisdom and my elders, and turning towards like people who worked with their hands and farming and labor and artisans. I learned so much more. But what it was for me was really to leave everything I'd been positioned to do and listen deeper and tune into actually what was my heart and my soul saying, and to use that as a compass for the rest of my life. To I've often thought about the term integrity, and I like just breaking it down. I was like, oh, it's being in the gritty. To be in integrity is to be in the grittiness of like my own truth, like my heart's values, that inner voice, and listening deeper. And I think that was the first time I really heard spirit in a profound way that said to me, like, you don't need to follow the path that's been laid out if it's not the right path for you. And that path that you want to follow, which is one of connection and community and really healing and transforming yourself from the inside out, that path is actually going to be a gift, because it's a true gift to yourself. So what happened to me there, and the rest of life unfolded, and I met Yes and the jams and many other things that happened, many magical adventures. But I think it was entrusting in magic, in something much deeper, my own magic, than the forces and the voices outside of me. And for that, I have that wish and that gift for everyone, that we can tune in deeper. And I think about that often, like how many things in our world could shift if people had the time to slow down enough to listen to what's really their heart's calling, what's really inside of them, and to receive the support and the love and the care to actualize that in the world. And so that would be probably my biggest moment of choice. I'll stop there and pass it to Deborah.
Well, my biggest moment of choice was actually somewhat similar to Shilpa's. I was a child actress from the age of 5, and I thought that was what I was put on earth to do. And when I graduated from college, I learned how to sing, and I went into musical theater, and that was my young adult career. And I reached a point, maybe you could call it a midlife crisis, but suddenly nothing was working anymore. And it was a terrible feeling, like my life was falling apart. And I had read somewhere that if you sat down in meditation and asked a question, you could get an answer. So I thought, okay, this is a perfect time to try this. So I sat down and I got quiet. And I asked why I hadn't gotten a particular job. And I heard loud and clear in my head, because it's time for your real work to begin now. And I was like, oh, okay, smarty. So what's that? And I heard, be a minister. My family's Jewish. My spiritual path at that point as a young seeker had been in every direction. So I had edited a book on Tibetan Buddhism, and I was singing at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine every Sunday, and all kinds of different paths. I was reading Ram Dass, like we all were, right, in those days. And I just really didn't know what to do with this message. But to make a long story short, within a week, I discovered that in New York City, where I was born and raised and living at that time, there existed something called the New Seminary that trained interfaith ministers, something I had never heard of before. This was back in 1991. And when I saw the notice in the paper about this rabbi who trained interfaith ministers, Rabbi Joseph Gelberman, the open house was that night for the next semester. And I went and fell in love with the rabbi, as we all did. He was an extreme carrier of joy, and signed up. And what changed the most about my life was the whole idea of being a minister. The rabbi would tell us that after 2 years, we were going to be a reverend. And he would say that word with reverence. And I realized that the minute I put Reverend in front of my name, I was declaring myself to be in service to others. And that was pretty much the opposite of my experience of being in the theater. So it began to change me from the inside out. And my life now is in service in many, many different ways. And my ministry is only maybe even a small part of that at this time, when most of my focus is being the director of the Evolutionary Leaders and supporting these magnificent beings like you, Scott, and Lori, and Shilpa, and some of the other guests that we're going to be meeting on tomorrow night and Sunday morning. And I'm in service to the transformation of human consciousness. So that was my moment of choice.
That's beautiful, just beautiful. Thank you. You know, I'm reminded of something Marshall Rosenberg. Marshall's in the field, in our field tonight. Marshall had a wonderful quote, which was that the greatest joy in life is to contribute to the well-being of others. And I've added a second tagline, which is, and the greatest tragedy of life is people who haven't discovered that. Right? When we discover the joy of contributing to others, that's grace. It's grace to know that. Because we're not doing it to be spiritual. We're doing it because it just feels really good. It feels yummy, you know? And it's a blessing to know that. And you are, all three of you, life is using all three of you quite well. You're being well used by God, by life, by the unified field. It's already 8:45, which means that we're down to kind of our final round. So I'm going to ask each of you a question. And then at the end of your question, we'll take a look at your websites and learn more about each of you. You all are wonderful storytellers. So I'd love for you to share any stories of how you've observed or experienced a moment of choice in a transformational way. Kind of kind of ending with some inspiration, if you will. So who'd like to go first? An inspirational example of a moment of choice in your life or that you've observed or experienced. Laurie.
I can do that. And there's so many. But I would say that my first trip to Rwanda, I was working with a group of 50 women who had become leaders of their village because the men had been all murdered. So they were responsible for picking up the pieces after the genocide and becoming leaders. And as always, I got to know them first. I spent a lot of time with them before we even ever did any work together. And I remember asking them, what did they want more than their grief and trauma? And I remember even when it came out of my mouth, I was thinking, how can you possibly ask these group of women who have seen the worst of human tragedies? But I followed that guidance. I put that out there. And they said, peace in their hearts and peace in their country. So I did this work with them that involves EFT, in which I was able to clear their physiology and bring them to a moment of stillness. And at the end of the work, there was one woman who was the leader of the women, Mama Lambert. And I really wanted her validation. And I was a little intimidated by Mama Lambert. But I went right in and we did this EFT protocol. And there was complete silence at the end. And I asked, how are you feeling now? And there was just no one, there was just silence. And Mama Lambert stands up and she puts her hands like this and she says, now this is what we need more of. And in that moment, they were given the permission, they realized that it was safe to hold their grief and trauma in one way and still choose peace in their hearts. And because peace in their hearts and peace in their country was more important than what they were experiencing in that moment.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I know I'm going to want to get more Laurie. I'm going to ask her to be on our show again next week, even though it's already full up, but we'll talk about that, Laurie. So there are two websites that I want to introduce people to. One is, what a beautiful name, createglobalhealing.org. Let's just hold that vision for a minute. createglobalhealing.org. What a beautiful name. And so I want to invite everybody to please go there. And immediately, always, when you come to these wonderful presenters that you meet through our show, please always register. I know that we get a lot of emails, but these are the emails that we want to be receiving. So I have just subscribed to her newsletter. That's an important thing to do. And the next thing to do is to go buy our moment of choice. It's very simple. Just click on it. And let's all support the Evolutionary Leaders Network and our moment of choice in the Synergy Circle. It's a great book. I'm going to say for a moment, just so you all see. Oh, I've got it on Laurie. Ta-da! This is it. And just think, you could be holding this book as well. And so I really want to encourage everybody to go out and buy it. It's a wonderful book. And it's one of those books, I keep it by my bedside. And it's like, you can just read a chapter like, oh my gosh, what does Chief Phil Lane have to say? I've seen him on The Awakening World. I love Chief Phil, right? Or I turned right to Shilpa Jane. There you go. So she has a call to action here. So let's all get our moment of choice. And you can do that by going to Lori's website. But I'm going to go back, put the spotlight back on you, Lori, because we're not done. There's more Lori to learn about, and that's her actual website. And her actual website, which again I want to encourage all of you to go to, is right here. And it's her name, Lori, spelled Lori, Leyden, LEYDEN.com, LoriLeyden.com. And once again, there's our moment of choice right there. What a wonderful evolutionary leader she is. Lori, is there any other place you'd like to emphasize that you want people to really, know about, or how they can reach out to you for support?
Yeah, for sure. In the createglobalhealing.org website, you can click on a link to watch our documentary for free. But also on the LoriLeyden.com website, you can sign up for the newsletter and receive my ebook on the 5 stages of embodied grace, which...
Okay, so hold on, because now I'm on the documentary. We will get back to the 5 stages of grace.
Right.
But tell us about, when I was young, I said I would be happy. So tell us about this.
Right. So that chronicles the journey of our 12 Project Light Rwanda ambassadors and how they paid their healing forward to hundreds of people in Rwanda and to our young people in Newtown. And so it just shows how, healing can come out of the worst of human tragedies.
Oh, beautiful. I see that you were at the Illuminate Film Festival. We highlighted them last year, and I hosted their final evening program.
Beautiful.
All right, so now we are going to go back to Lori's personal website, and we're going to learn all about the 5 healing graces. Is that here?
Well, if you sign up for the newsletter, you can download the ebook, which is 5 Stages of Embodied Grace, which is really a path of our healing journey from separation to synergy, and people seem to be excited about the fact that they can honor where they are in their journey and what the next steps are. So, yeah, that's me.
Lori, what a pleasure to meet you. You're right, Reverend Deb. Rev Deb, she rocks. Both of these ladies are just such a blessing. People are writing in the chat box, how do I get a hold of them? I want links. So no, I won't give their cell phone number out. Shilpa, tell us, what's a story that comes to mind? A story of a moment of choice that created transformation.
Yeah, this is such a good question. And my mind flashed with like so many stories from all over the world. I was like, pick one. So the one that's coming to me in this moment is from a jam actually in Turkey. And maybe because I was thinking of my friend who did that image earlier today. But it was in 2014 or 2013. And it was a time in Turkey where there had been protests. It was very close to just following the Arab Spring and Occupy Wall Street movements, and a lot of global movements where young people primarily, were rising up and saying, we don't want to go on with this business as usual. We don't want to go on with these injustices that are happening. And so that was the milieu in Turkey. And there was a lot of pushback, not surprisingly, from the government, and the energy that the government was putting out was something like, either you're with us or you're not, and 50% of the people in this country are a problem. And we've seen that, of course, in authoritarian regimes around the world, of like, again, dividing people. What happened was that at the jam, what we started to notice is that every half an hour to an hour, 2 people were getting into a conflict with each other, and the trust broke down like that. It was just like completely over and over again. It was just happening. And so started to think about what's happening systemically and how is that impacting us interpersonally and personally, what's going on internally with our systems of trust. And so we'd bring the group, those folks, they'd come to the center in the circle, they'd be heard, they'd be seen, they would listen to each other, they would slow down, they'd come into that stretch zone, and the group would find its equilibrium. There'd be healing, there'd be learning, and then an hour or two later, another two people. It was happening again, and so at a certain point, we just started to name this, like, what's going on in our field, and we have a choice. This is a moment of choice here. Do we buy into this story that the other is the problem, the other is at fault, the other doesn't belong here, the other's truth can't be true? Do we buy into that, or do we make a choice collectively and internally that there is enough space for each and every one of us, that we belong, that everyone matters here, and that we can actually learn and grow more together when we start to bridge these divides and listen and deepen into our own trust and into a trust of each other. And something fundamentally shift. This is probably the third day, and something fundamentally shift. And people realized we don't have to pick sides. We can be on the same side. We can be on each other's side, that all of us are seeking healing and growth and learning and community, and all of us deserve that. And so the whole experience shifted from the space of, oh, I'm either in or I'm out, to know we all are in and we all can have space for each other. And I think this is the art of this time, is how do we make space within ourselves and with each other for all that is here, for everyone that is here, human beings and non-human beings, all of the beings of our universe, because everyone wants to be heard, everyone wants to be seen and respected and cared for and loved. And there is a way forward by slowing down enough to listen, by slowing down enough to make that space, and make that space in ourselves by sharing our truths as well. And so that for me was a really fundamental moment of shifting. And it was a reminder to me of what's possible in human community when we choose to lean into connection rather than division.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you. And a reminder again to go to yesworld.org. And thank you so much for the beautiful work you're doing. And it's
you
just
can scroll down there if you want to, Scott, because there's a lot of resources. There's actually a facilitation manual. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see our storytelling. There's a facilitation manual that's online, and just passed it by. But you can click on that, and you can get over 200 tools. Yep. Yeah, right there. If you click on that, over 200 tools and practices that can really support you in inner transformation, interpersonal transformation, and systemic transformation. We have a podcast that's telling a lot of these magnificent stories about how people are being able to take their learnings and their experiences at jams and translate them into political environments and social environments and law schools and courtrooms and educational settings, all kinds of stories. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see our facilitation manual, Connecting, Inspiring, and Collaborating with Change Makers. And that has, over 200 tools and practices that people can pick up, bring to their families, bring to their organizations, bring to their communities in ways that can really offer so much healing and growth and learning, co-learning, collaborating, co-liberating together. So please.
I'm so glad you pointed this out to me. Look at all this that's here. This is amazing. So this is an incredible document that somebody has put together.
Yeah, we put a lot of good work into it. Yes, I'm one of those somebodies, but there are.
Oh my God, bless you.
Somebody, yeah.
That's
so
beautiful.
yeah, this is a resource for us, and I'm just sure the wonderful audience here of Global Peace Tribe is so committed to building it, and to have scaffolding, to have pathways to really that are simple and that are human, to really actualize these connections in this world and this time. It's available. It's a resource for all of us.
Oh, thank you so much, Shilpa. Well, Rev Deb.
I just want to express my gratitude to these amazing women who are part of our Evolutionary Leaders Circle, and all of the 240 evolutionary leaders. If you go to evolutionaryleaders.net, you just will see why I love my work. Supporting and amplifying the work of all of these amazing people. And that's one of the things that makes our moment of choice such a treasure, is that there are 43 of these voices that have given a little taste, each one, of their wisdom and what they bring to the table, what they bring to the world right now in this one book. So it's been a joy to meet the evolutionary leaders and to get to know their extraordinary work. And I love, Scott, the way you've been highlighting their website so that I could learn more about their work.
Yeah.
And I love that you do that from week to week on these broadcasts. So thank you so, so much.
Well, speaking of highlighting websites, we are not going to let you get away without talking about the Garden of Light. And I remember the very first time I had you on one of my shows is when I got introduced to the Garden of Light. So please tell us about this. And everybody, the website that I want to encourage you to go to is gardenoflight.org, as opposed to Garden of Flight.
Yes.
Tell us about this.
Actually, the Garden of Light is related to my chapter in our moment of choice, which is about the emerging global spirituality. I believe that there is a powerful emergence right now of a spirituality that transcends our religious beliefs, that is amply demonstrated by the guests that you bring onto this program, including this evening, that there is a spiritual impulse to evolve that we are following, that there is an explosion of purpose in this world, of willingness to serve, and of a desire for each of us to become a better person, to participate in our own personal evolution so that we can be of benefit to others in our life journey. And this is really what I believe is going to save our world, because we are going to discover, as Shilpa said, the more we listen to one another, the more we see the light within each person. And Lori talked about how she saw people transformed from being absolutely buried by their grief and tragedy. And then they emerged into beings of light who could help lead others to the light. So the Garden of Light is an exploration of that emergent global spirituality. And there's lots to explore on the Garden of Light. I only wish I had more time to give to that, because it's really so much of my heart lies in that revelatory experience of exploring what's moving through humanity now. And it doesn't matter who you are or what side of what issue you're on. This is part of that evolution of humanity, moving from beyond the religious competition to a spiritual opening, where we are discovering that we share beliefs that we didn't even have 20 years ago. Beliefs like that we can heal ourselves and one another. That as Lori, I think, mentioned, that it's time to respect Indigenous wisdom, because it may be what saves us here on the planet. So all of these aspects of the spirituality that are so important right now in our world. And I just want to say one other thing about the evolutionary leaders. I want to give a shout out to the Source of Synergy Foundation, because that is the home of the evolutionary leaders. It was founded by Diane Marie Williams. She and I wrote the introduction to the book, and the book would not have happened. The evolutionary leaders would not have happened without the Source of Synergy Foundation. And Diane's going to be on Sunday morning with you, Scott.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So that's a good segue. We are going to close with music. Our beloved Omashar is with us, so he's going to play some music for us in a moment. But just a reminder that tomorrow night on our Saturday night edition, we've got John Perkins coming back. I love John. And we've got Chief Phil Lane, brother Phil. I spoke to him earlier today, and we've got some wonderful musicians. Travis Puntarelli, who's written a song just for us tomorrow. That's going to be pretty fun.
Can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, that's going to be, who knows, you might be getting a new theme song tomorrow. So we're excited about that. And we also have for music, Ivy Hylton is going to both speak and play music. And then we've got...
And she is another evolutionary leader.
And a wonderful one. She's been on our show many, many times because she just relates in so many different levels, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Sound healing and her wisdom, her work in racism. We also have tomorrow Kurt Johnson, your beloved partner that you collaborate so beautifully with. And then we're going to see some pre-recorded videos of Gregg Braden, Carolyn Meese, and Reverend Michael Beckwith. So it's another full show.
And what about Dr. Jude Currivan? Are we going to hear from her?
And thank you for reminding me, Jude Currivan. We've got that. Yes, we've got that also. So it's going to be a powerful, powerful night. And then we close out on Sunday morning with Justin Fairman, Bob Atkinson, Diane Williams, and Reverend Sylvia Sumter, all joining us on my Sacred Sunday show. And the Sacred Sunday show, just as a reminder for everybody, that's at 10 o'clock in the morning, Pacific time. And that's always when we kind of wrap up what the weekend has been all about. And we have a lot of Q&A, go a little bit later if we need to. And so it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful show. So definitely do join us. Reverend Deb is being replaced by Justin Fairman on Sunday. Nobody can replace you, but she's going to be at church singing in God's choir. And Justin is going to be in this little round spot right here. We'll try to change the poster about it tomorrow night. Well, thank you, ladies. What a wonderful evening. Thank you for the great, beautiful work you're doing in the world. And I know we're
I knew you were going to love these two.
Totally. All three of you. It's an honor to be sharing space with you.
And thank you, Scott, so much for making this space and time for us. It's truly beautiful. And I just love being part of this book launch and now a part of your Peace Tribe.
Yeah, welcome to the Global Peace Tribe. You know, it was a very spontaneous thing. What happened was when the pandemic hit, we were going to do a fundraising event live, and there was this thing about masks and all that. So all of a sudden I was like, oh, what are we going to do? And well, let's make it online. So I invited some of my friends who are musicians, and it was a Saturday night, and people said, oh, that was really fun. Why don't we do it again next Saturday night? So I said, well, okay. And then I committed to doing it for the pandemic, thinking the pandemic was going to last a couple of months, right? Well, that was well over 2 years ago. I have not missed a weekend since, and we expanded to, so I've actually done a show every Friday night, every Saturday night, and every Sunday morning for 2 years now, as a way to provide inspiration and information. And this beautiful community has grown spontaneously. And we've gotten, every weekend we get to meet new friends and old friends. So it's really quite wonderful. And so welcome aboard to the Global Peace Tribe.
Thank you so much, Scott.
And a big part of the Global Peace Tribe is music, as you're going to hear tomorrow night. And now you're going to hear with our beloved friend Omashar. Omashar, he kind of discovered us. He just started coming as a regular, and then he kind of said, well, you know, I play music. And I was like, I played Hard to Get, and I said, well, you know, send me a YouTube link. But I listened to it, I was like, this guy's good. And now he's become like the house musician for the Global Peace Tribe. So, Omashar, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. Tonight's topic is such a part of my life and my heart. And Shilpa and Laurie and Deborah, thank you. You have touched me to my core. And that which you have shown about your work is just phenomenal. I don't really have any words for it. My sharing usually comes in music, and a song popped to mind called "The Time Has Come," and I do think that I've sung it on this show before. I don't know, but there's the chorus to it. I've just popped it into the Zoom, into the chat, and I'll just sing it. And thank you so much. What a beautiful evening. And this weekend has only just begun. It's only just begun.
One with all feeling, and one with all love, one with all healing, and one with all. I felt alone for so many years, and held my head high to hide the pain. Nowhere to turn, so to myself again. I tuned my heart to the mother, and I am one with all feeling, and one with all love, one with all healing, and one with all. I am one with all feeling, and one with all love, one with all feeling, and one with all. The time has come to wake my sleepy head and peel back the sheets of illusion. The time has come to lift my voice once more and sing the songs of the new world. I am one with all feeling, and one with all love, one with all healing, and one with all. I am one with all feeling, and one with all love, one with all healing, and one with all.
That's all Twinkle, beloved Omar Shar, for that wonderful, wonderful music. Thank you.
Right back at you.
And I'm on gallery view, so we can see some of our friends, even those that are having dinner. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And, you know, if you enjoy the show, a wonderful thing to do is to share this with your friends. So take the Facebook link, share it out, let people know about the awakening world, let people know so that more people know what Lori and Shilpa and Reverend Deb and all the people you see on this show are doing, because we are growing this beautiful global peace tribe. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.